Good afternoon, everyone. How is everyone doing today on Transformational and Truly Wonderful Wednesday? It is another great day to be alive and another gift not only to receive, but to give as well. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, since it is Wednesday, it is that time again for our awesome and amazing call, which is, of course, Conversations for Humanity in and of itself. Um, so we are having our special guest coming on here in just a little bit. She's right now getting on the call as we speak. She just messaged me and said, I'll be there in a couple of minutes. So she will be on. And of course, it is going to be Janice Edwards. So we'll be looking forward to her sharing her story with us on Conversation for Humanity. And we're going to be doing a little bit of something different today. For those who are watching and want to join into the call, and of course, if you're on LinkedIn or also on YouTube, the link to join the call is in the comment section of today's call. So at the tail end, what we'll do is we'll bring you up, or even if you want to bring yourself up beforehand, that's fine. But we're not going to take any questions or Q&A or anything like that until kind of the tail end of everything. So we give Janice an opportunity to share her story, share her mission, share everything about her. And as you guys will see on LinkedIn and also on YouTube too as well, I put a lot of information about Janice, her bio, her websites, um, her Instead talks that was done with Dennis Pococo and Biz Catalyst 360. So all that information is there. Please go check out all that information if you can. That'd be greatly appreciated. But we want to hear from you too as well, because these conversations matter. And I truly believe when we get into a place of deep and meaningful conversation, that creates not only more connection and more engagement, but that tends to end us almost to from a conversational kind of dynamic, call us to act and everything like that, and that will lead into collaboration and so much more. So that's what we're going to be doing here on today's call. It's going to doing it from that format and see if that works for a lot of people and everything. So we're going to do it in that kind of way. So if you like I said, if you want to jump into the call, like I said, just use that link. But like I said, we're going to hold off of any questions or anything like that from of Janice until, like I said, the very tail end of the call and everything like that. So like I said, we'll just be waiting on her to get on and everything. So we're looking forward to hearing her story today and everything. So we'll be doing that very shortly. And again, if you guys want to end up sharing your story on Conversations for Humanity, I will send you guys the link to do so. And we would love for you to do that. And this is going to be the link at calendly.com/guest PHT/CFH. And we will love to you to come share your story with us on Conversation for Humanity as well. Because I truly believe not only the stories matter, but stories should be shared and be heard in and of itself. Because maybe that one story can be that one story that give people an opportunity not only to shine, but as they say, to be the star of your show, like you are, Janice, today, because Janice is here. So, Janice, how are you doing today on Wonderful Wednesday?
I am great. I'm so excited to be here with you.
All righty, all righty. So, how are things there in California for you?
You know what? It's a gorgeous day. It's a holiday, and I'm really just feeling blessed, appreciative of all the blessings in my life. Excited to be with you because you are such a force of nature when it comes to empowerment and humanity. So, very happy to connect.
Awesome. And Dina, glad to see you here. If you want to join into the conversation, we would love for you. Please click that link and we would love to have you there. And again, thank you so hard for joining us and everything, because you were on our call yesterday. So we're glad that you're here too as well. But like I said, any questions that you want to present, we'll do it at the tail end of the call. But Janice, I've been doing a lot of homework in and of itself. And I kid you not, it was a lot of extensive homework because there's websites, there was your bio, there was this. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love it. I need more. Uh, but But Janice, I gotta start off the conversation with you. Is can you tell us who you are and start from there?
Gosh, well, I am first and foremost a woman of faith. I'm a walking miracle, and I'm grateful to God for every blessing in my life. Beyond that, people know me best through my talk show and as a producer as well. The talk show Janice Edwards TV Bay Area Vista that I launched on NBC Bay Area is my most recent one. Before that, I was the host of a show called Black Renaissance. I've also worked as an anchor, reporter, shooter, editor, etc., as well as print journalist. I'm the author, a co-author of the book Step Into Your Brilliance. I wrote a chapter called It's Showtime. It's Your Time to Shine. And I am someone now who I called myself years ago the reluctant entrepreneur when I wound up beginning to get into business. But now I'm the grateful entrepreneur because I also coach others. You mentioned how to be the star in the reality show of your own life. And on my
Mhm.
website, that's the 5 keys to being the star in the reality show of your own life. Because what I'm committed to is helping others really shine brilliantly and to step into their destiny. We all are here for a purpose. And a lot of times there's so much that throws us off that game and doesn't help us connect with that. So I'm really committed to helping people do that. And with media, whether it's doing videos or capturing people's stories and what I call legacy interviews to help them create books, or really tuning into what is truly in your heart. What is it that your soul is crying out for that isn't often recognized by people? And so it's really helping people to connect with that. Because once you connect with that, then you're in a different zone, as you well know. I mean, you have such a great story of triumph. And many of us have been told, like you were, well, you'll never do this, you'll never do that. And it's like, why is that being said? And what do I know to be true about me? And what do I think God has for me, even beyond what maybe certain people say? I was told that by a well meaning counselor. I was 16 and I was the host of a co-host of a teen talk radio show, and this counselor said no one would ever want to turn on television and see someone who looks like you. And I thought, I don't know that that's true. I hope that's not true. But at the time, I wasn't even thinking about being on camera. I was just thinking, well, it's better to be behind the scenes. And it is great because you get to control a lot of the content. I mean, the whole world has changed since then because of podcasts, because of social media, because of us being able to connect as we are now. But at that time, that was part of the truth of what that counselor thought was important for me to understand. But one of the things I learned as a reporter is sometimes when someone is telling you no, you look and say, okay, you're telling me no. How do I get to the person who can tell me yes? And a lot of times, that person who can tell us yes, first and foremost, is within us. It's looking at every experience that you've had that's saying, no, you can't do this. You're too young. You're too old. You're too this. You're too that. And saying, but what is true about me? What do I believe to be true? And how do I connect with people who can also affirm that?
I love that. And was it just by chance that you got into journalism and interviewing, or was it just kind of a moment you said, "Hey, this is what I want to do. This is my passion and purpose"? How did that turn out?
Well, when I was in high school, I loved acting. I still love acting, and I was proud to earn my actors equity card and SAG card years ago. But I told my mother, I'm not going to college. I just want to act. And she said, you're going to college, young lady, get over it. So I went to college. I grew up in Atlanta, went to school in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And my father, during my freshman year, came to see me and he told me, and he was an attorney, and I was thinking about law and I was thinking about psychology. I was always interested in how things work and how to help people. And he said, you might not want to deal with people's problems every day in the way that law requires. And what I started to understand is, especially because of being a very empathic as well as empathetic person, I absorbed a lot of that. And he said, do what you love to do, that you get up and do every day, even if you didn't get paid for it. Now, my joke is that I didn't know in TV there were jobs you didn't get paid for. Some of those I found along the way. But what he said really stuck with me because he was giving up law. Now, law is so important. Let me say that first and foremost. But for him, he was disillusioned with it as a vehicle for change. And so he wound up giving up his law practice and teaching, and he taught law. And then tragically, my father died at a relatively early age, if we think of it on this side, now, but he was 53. And what struck me most, two things. One, that he had done what was important for him. He wound up taking care of his mother and then teaching instead of being in a courtroom. And he didn't know that at the time we had that conversation, he would only have 6 more years of life. But he used that to do what was most important to him. And then the also great gift that I got from my father was that we also wound up having incredible conversations about 6 months before he died, based on the fact that I'd done this forgiveness exercise. And I share this because if there's anyone here who has had an opportunity to think about someone and wish that things could be different, just by writing forgivenesses, it can transform everything. And so that experience really, for that time doing it, not even telling my dad, it just led to these conversations. And so when he did die suddenly and tragically, the only thing we had not said was goodbye. So the combination of him telling me to do what I love to do, the example in his life, and then the summer before my senior year in college, I was in Spain, fluent in Spanish, but people were saying things about Americans, people were saying things about Black Americans, especially, not knowing that I was fluent in Spanish. And I saw then how law follows what media leads in terms of transforming hearts and minds. And I was dedicated to sharing positive images of all people and doing things that would unite people. So that combined finally with the long answer to your question was, as I was preparing for the LSATs, I still wasn't sure. And so my stomach kept flopping. So instead, I went to graduate school in journalism, and then I started working in television after graduate school.
Wow. And did you get your start at a TV station or did it start in a newspaper?
It was well, I wrote for a Spanish newspaper when I was at Harvard, and then there was a paper called El Mundo in Cambridge, and then I wrote for a paper called the California Weekly, California Voice. But I worked at the NBC affiliate at that time, KRON, and I started there. I started from being an intern to getting a job as a production assistant. And it was one of those things where I was always eager to do the next thing. I remember one time there was this junket coming to town, and none of the producers wanted to do it that weekend. I said, I'll go. And they said, well, yeah, there's this guy there. They think he's going to be big. His name is Kevin Costner. So go and get an interview with him, which I did. And it was really a great weekend. He was there with his then wife and little baby, and I was there with my then husband, and we just had this great conversation. I took it back to the station, and then of course I wish I still had that tape. I don't, Chris, but it was just like one of those things. I loved media, and I was just walking in my purpose. And so from there I wound up doing more things, becoming an associate producer, then ultimately becoming the host of a show, and then still producing as well. And today my show, Janice Edwards TV Bay Area Vista, which has been seen in different stations in California, is in its 22nd year. So it evolved with a lot of different bumps in the road. I did wind up going back to acting at one point in that journey, and that was when I earned my Actors Equity card and my SAG card, and did a two-woman show with Tony Award nominee Anna Devere Smith, as well as acting in a play where the director had coached Diana Ross as her acting coach in Lady Sings the Blues. And the guy who played my husband in the play was the dad on The Smart Guy. So there are a lot of people from Hollywood and that. So it's been an evolution in terms of career.
Wow. Now, I have to take this into context because you just said Kevin Costner, and he's probably one of my favorite actors in and of itself. But you've actually interviewed so many people, it's not even funny. You got the likes of Snoop Dogg, Dwayne DeWalk Johnson, even Robert Redford, and you have done so many interviews, and I've asked you this before, but I got to ask it for our audience. If you had to pin it down to maybe a few people that you say is probably the best interviews that you had, which would those people be on that scale of kind of your best interviews?
For different reasons. Well, one, I loved the interview with Robert Redford because, as you probably saw in the clip, when I asked him the question, he said, before he answered it, he said, "First of all, would you travel with me to different cities and ask that question? You did it so well." And that just really stuck with me because I thought, oh, that's wonderful to have that kind of compliment. And when I interviewed Oprah and she paused when I asked a question and said, that's a very good question. That was a seminal moment because also because of when that counselor had told me no one would ever want to watch me. And then I used to watch Oprah and say, I'd like to do what she does. So that was pivotal in that way to have that opportunity to sit with someone who from a distance had been a mentor, even though I'd never met her before. One of the interviews that really touched my heart was not with a celebrity, but it was with a gentleman who was part of a program called EHC Home Builders, which is one for people who become homeless and then are then placed with in an apartment or a home and really helping to rebuild their lives. And what they also do is that they connect, hello, hi, they connect people with their family members. So this gentleman had been estranged from his daughter for several years. And EHC Home Builders not only helped him after he'd had two heart attacks and it wound up homeless to get a place to live, but to reconnect to a life that he loved. So that was super meaningful for me. And then Merle Evers Williams, who was head of the NAACP at the time that I interviewed her, but she was also the widow of Medgar Evers. And
Mhm.
she had remarried, and she was saying how in her second marriage, they had an opportunity to connect as husband and wife in a way that the civil rights movement did not allow them to because of what was upon them all the time. And she talked about the importance of understanding what we need personally, as well as what we need to be courageous leaders when it comes to movements. And because Dr. King's brother had been in my parents' wedding, and my mother used to teach with Dr. King's sister at Morehouse College in Atlanta, and Andrew Young, Vernon Jordan, and Maynard Jackson were some of the carpool daddies who drove us to school. I understood a lot about civil rights from that and the responsibility of really being connected to being a force for good in everyone's life to the best of your ability. But her interview stuck with me because people a lot of times don't talk about the sacrifices that come with leadership. And you know that well with all that you fought back from and all that you have created and you're committed to now with humanity. I know you get backlash too from that,
Mhm.
from people who say, why do this? You could just go quietly and do something else. But you know, when you're called to do something, that calling also has a responsibility and it has a sacrifice. And so when you talk about servant leadership and being in tune with those things, that interview stood out for me because it became, in a sense, of a blueprint for understanding some of the disappointments that might come in following the path that is part of destiny, but at the same time, understanding the importance of doing that, not only because of what you are gleaning personally from it, but because of what you're called to do that can bless and benefit others.
Now, you just blew me away. To have Dr. Martin Luther King and his wife drive you to school?
No, Dr. King didn't. No, Dr. King sadly had been assassinated at that time, but
Oh, okay.
people who worked with him, Andrew Young, Reverend Andrew Young, who became Ambassador Young,
Right.
and his daughters and I went to the same school. Vernon Jordan, who was known most famously as the first friend with President Clinton, but was head of a civil rights organization. And then Maynard Jackson, who said he was one day going to be the first Black mayor of Atlanta. Were some of the carpool daddies because all of us went to school together. And so there were different people, taking turns driving. The moms and the dads would do that. So what happened because of that is that when Mr. Jackson said, one day I'm going to do this, and we thought, really, Mr. Jackson? Okay, because we're little girls sitting in the back seat of
Yeah.
the car. But it helped us understand something about having a vision, speaking
Uh-huh.
life to that vision, and also the responsibility of being a good role model, no matter what you were doing, even as young children.
So, did you ever meet Coretta Scott King?
You know what? I did not. I actually portrayed her in the passages of Martin Luther King at Stanford University years ago. I did not meet Mrs. King. I met Mrs. Christine King Ferris, who was Dr. King's sister, because, as I said,
Yeah.
my mother were colleagues teaching at Morehouse College in Atlanta. And then Donzale Abernathy and her brother Ralph were some of the people we used to go to do this workout together. So there were people connected with the civil rights movement where their parents were on the front lines. And so we would share stories about what they were doing, as well as the stories about other lives. My grandmother actually was part of the NAACP, and she was very courageous. And I found out years later when I worked in Congressman Ron Dellum's office that from Atlanta, she had helped support his first campaign in California. And I had no idea when I became an intern there. So there's been a through line of understanding the importance of leadership in that way.
Well, I would have loved to, like I said, been a fly on that wall, so to speak, to hear all those people when you were going to college and they were taking you to school and everything like that, of the things that they said and everything.
Yeah,
But
in elementary school, yes.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But I got to turn to this because it really just calls to me. Besides your family, because I know your family has had a lot of influence on you in and of itself, and it's
Mhm,
probably been a lot of your friends too as well.
mhm.
Is there a group of people that you can look to and turn to and say, these are the people who shaped me to become the person I am today? And who were those people?
Oh gosh, there were so many. I can think about teachers that were part of that. Let's see, Senora Moritz, when I was in 7th grade, I studied at my elementary school. We studied French from the time I was 5 till I was 12. And then when I switched schools, I started studying Spanish because my best friend spoke Spanish. And Senora Moritz was such a kind and compassionate person. I have to this day an etching of Don Quixote de la Mancha that she gave me when I graduated from high school. But she not only helped me understand so much about different cultures, and she was from Argentina, but I loved languages, and I wound up getting first place in the nation for in written and first place in the state for non-native speakers in Spanish when I was in ninth grade. But to open up a different world. It was because of her encouragement as well as my mother's. And you mentioned my family, but that before my sophomore year in college, I studied in Mexico with a program called
Mm-hmm.
Berryman in International Living. So that was an amplification of seeing a world beyond what I had grown up with. And that played a huge role. I would say that my spiritual godfather, Mr. Al Hollingsworth, has been someone as well. He founded a program called Boss the Movement, building on spiritual substance. And for the training that he does, it's really about helping people hear from God and walk into their destiny and understand that and not be confused about what you're hearing and the importance of acting now when there's a moment that you are something is a divine download to act in that moment and not wait, because we know from the examples that there are others who will be called to take on something if you don't do what is part of your assignment, if you will. So,
That
yeah.
that is amazing. That really is. Because to be honest with you,
Mhm.
a teacher also shaped my life too as well.
Oh,
And
really?
as you, yeah, yeah, because even in my story that's on Biz Catalyst 360,
Yes.
her name was Patty Harville, and she said these very words to me, and I kid you not, stays with me to this very day. She said, "Chris, if you want to be seen and heard, uh, you want to end up closing your eyes, seeing the words, being the words, and let the words flow right through you." And ever since then, that really just kind of just came to me and saying, hey, maybe when you do know that, you will be that in everything. And I
Yes.
believe that was the same thing for you when you
Yes.
had that person in and
Mhm.
of itself. But going from journalism, and of
Mhm.
course, learning a little bit about the law, so to speak, and everything like that. And then you went even into the realm of interning in politics.
Mhm.
What's have you been seeing in that kind of span of the journey that you've done that in? What's been the kind of the common denominators that you saw along the way, and maybe the things that really speak to you when you have done that, from going to journalism, going to interning for a campaign, and everything like that, and then even to the correlation even of acting? How's all that kind of been interconnected in your life?
Well, I see that, and thank you. That's a beautiful question. And I'm so glad that you had a teacher who helped you see things. I feel that the interconnection has been with looking at where can I make a difference and what is most meaningful, both personally and professionally. So the way it all connected is when I was acting and I loved it, and I started to delve into characters, I came to understand for me personally that just what you were talking about, speaking words, seeing things, and embodying that was something that I wanted to be able to do through a talk show with helping people share their stories, because words are so powerful and we are creative beings. That for me, sometimes with some of the characters that I was called to immerse myself in, I was understanding that their truth, even though I was bringing those real emotions to it, was not necessarily the truth that was for me to bring to the world in the best way. And similarly with politics, it was eye-opening to be in the office as an intern and see that with Congressman Dellums and some of the people at the time who were there just starting their careers, with now Congressman Barbara Lee. And so she was just running for her first offices there when I was a grad student. And so seeing an arc of history and understanding that we may not always be clear about everything in our path. But if we continue to tune into what we know to be true about ourselves, if we stand in the integrity that we're able to, and to the best of our ability with all that we're doing, in truth and in compassion, in uplifting others, and in seeing where there are more connections as opposed to barriers, then that's where you have impact. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
the through line with everything is how does this, it's like when I'm coaching people, I'll say, well, how do you feel about certain things? And then what do you think about that? Because we know that both are so important in terms of tuning in. And so that's been for me recognizing that being able to have a platform, just like you have a platform to talk with people about ideas, to be the producer of it so that you can explore and expand in a way that you can't if you're only considered quote unquote talent, which is what they call it, in TV many times. And then to say, so how do I want people to feel at the end of something that I've shared? And that song, if I've helped someone along the way, then my living will not be in vain. That
Right.
is part of the through line for me.
Yes, yes. And when I was doing, of course, my homework for the interview today, one of the things that really struck me is when you did it in your YouTube video, that you talked about one of the most powerful songs that really resonated with you is from when Whitney Houston at the Olympics sang that one moment in time.
Yes.
So I want to dive into that. What was that one moment in time that you really knew it really foundationally not only changed you, but changed the direction and course of your life? What was that?
For me, I would say that one of those moments was, and I apologize, I'm going to have to plug in right now. I just saw a low battery warning. I don't want to lose. So I was trying to be smooth
Yeah.
about it, but I realized I don't want to be mid sentence and then lose you.
No worries, no worries.
Technical things, right? But this
Hey,
is
hey, that's what life is all about. It's all about the hiccups. Sometimes a good
right.
hiccup's a good one.
Okay, so we've got juice now. All right, so I can take my time answering your question. So for me, one moment in time, I think of two things, Chris. Professionally, I think of when I started working at NBC Bay Area because I was community relations director as well as launching the show that became Bay Area Vista. But one of the things that was happening was this station was jumping from the 125th market to the fifth largest market. And I became community ambassador, if you will. So I was talking with groups of people, some who didn't want to see the change, and also sharing with them how this station would benefit them. And now today, NBC Bay Area is considered a juggernaut in the Bay Area, but that was those early moments. And so working with the people, the then owners, Don Cornwall and others, and then when NBC came in and then working with them, understanding something about this had been a moment in destiny, a moment of destiny for me in terms of impact. And so that was one. A moment in time that I will never forget is watching my mother take her last breath. And that was an earthquake in my soul. I think a lot of people who've experienced that can understand what I mean by that. What it also helped me understand is that every moment that we have life is such an incredible gift. During the years that my mother was ill before she passed away, I could not imagine that I would ever even smile again because I was bereft about what was happening. But I saw that to live into all of my destiny, even what she and my father had poured into me and what God was directing me toward was to seize the moment, to take that moment in time. That this opportunity today is such a gift. It's such a precious gift to be able to connect and to share and to show up. And so those are two moments in time for me.
Well, for me, those moments in time is one of the most precious gifts that we've always been given. And you probably can agree with me that probably the greatest gift that we ever get is that present moment. And
Yes,
that present moment means something because when we don't be present in the present moment, maybe those gifts have been given to us. I won't say they won't be gone, but they kind of slip away. And it's not like we can't get them back, but maybe in that present moment, we go back and say, oh man, I missed out on this or I missed out on that and everything. But see, that's not the end of it, though. That's really maybe in and of itself the part to recognize, hey, maybe if I get more intentional and get more focused and get
mhm,
more in tune to who I am,
right,
those moments would not only come back, but they'd be multiplying in scope to such a degree that next thing you know, I don't have those lost moments or those lost gifts and everything like that.
exactly.
So, in the journey of life that you've been on,
Mm,
and expressing your gifts and talents and everyone that you see, or even receiving those gifts and talents from everyone that you meet on that journey, how has people shown up for you, whether you interviewed them, whether you've helped them in a campaign? How's that played out, and how does that been done from that place of, I truly believe, of human connectivity? Have you seen that interconnectedness to when people just show up, they're not only authentic and genuine, but they really want to say, hey, this is who I am?
absolutely. Oh my goodness. Yes, yes. There are so many angels in my life. There are so many people who have shown up at different times of need. Editors who said, "Let me do some shows for you and just show you what I can do before you even pay me." I mean, oh my goodness, that's incredible. So generous, so kind, so hours and hours of editing. Even right now, there's someone who's putting together something, a tribute to someone who's a dear friend. We're putting together a memorial service, and again, generosity of heart and spirit. I've had that with friends who were saying, how can I help you, or let me be here. Times, how sometimes, Chris, you don't want to necessarily ask for help, but then when someone provides something, it is incredible. It's humbling. And you recognize that couldn't do it without them. I mean, one of my favorite, it's a cartoon, and you might have seen it, but that's one picture on top, one on the bottom. Picture on top is people in hell. And they're sitting there and they're at this sumptuous table and they have these long forks and they can't get food into their mouths because the forks are too long.
Mm-hmm.
Picture below that, it shows people and they're in heaven. Sumptuous table, they're using their long forks to feed each other across the table. So everyone benefits. And so I've had just so many people who have done that, who've said, I see what you're doing. Let me help you here. Let me provide this for you in this way. I've learned, there's certain people that I've just watched how they live life. And I've learned things that I never learned before, even on this sunny side of 40, 50 and beyond. That, you know what I mean? It's just because I think that I joke sometimes that it's easier for me to produce 3 shows back to back than do some of the things that other people just can do naturally in life. And so getting a chance to go to a life university by seeing people who are able to navigate those other things has been life changing. And what's wonderful, and you probably have seen this too, when you encounter people who are truly great, they don't remind you of your deficits. They're saying, "Well, let's do this together. Have you considered this?" So it amplifies a world, and you don't have to be embarrassed about what you can't do. And then you can shine more brilliantly in your zone of genius because you're not required to do it all. I mean, there are so many people, the people that I work with in my social media team, when we have clients who are working to increase their visibility, and they do it by 2,000% in 3 months or 11,000% even. And I'm amazed at that because that's not my area. But I can appreciate the people who have those skills.
Mm-hmm.
Spiritual leaders. I think about the reverend who was the one who did my mother's funeral and eulogized her, just a king among men. And he's just so present. And to be there in the times when people are not necessarily at their best because they're grieving, and to be able to hold that and at the same time lead others, that's incredible. So, I mean, there's so many people, and I haven't named names necessarily, but because I think I'd lose someone out if I mention this name or that name. But yes, but especially, like I said, those people who have helped with the show to edit long hours. And sometimes I'll say, you know what, we just need 5 frames more on this. And they'll be like, oh, okay. All right. But it changes the way a video is perceived. So those kinds of experiences, I am humbled by friends and loved ones and just people and colleagues who have been extraordinary in their sacrifice and their kindness and pouring into my life.
And I got to bring this to the table because a great friend of mine who's actually in the UK,
Mhm,
Sue Dennis, did say this. I miss my mom and dad. Seize today, carpe diem.
mm,
Like in Dead Poet Society with Robin Williams. Have you seen that film, Chris? Years ago, I did see Dead Poet Society. It's I believe, one of the greatest, I want to say, dramatic roles that Robin Williams ever had, because
right.
that was a good one and
Yeah.
everything. But he was spot on in that, and that was really good. And then she even comes back and says, with this, no like time to present and no time like the present. Ending quote in the Second Marigold Hotel, which is about the
Yeah.
UK OPPs going to the India and the adventures they go with Judy Dench and everything. She said, "Thank you, Janice."
Oh, thank
Um,
you, Sue. And
yeah,
you talk about a moment in time. I wanted to watch Robin Williams work close up. And
yeah.
so I wound up becoming an extra on the film Mrs. Doubtfire. And I
No way.
yes. And I wanted to do it because I didn't care what we were had to do, but I just wanted to see him. And so it was amazing because even at the craft service table, he'd say, "Hello, Carrot. What are you doing today?"
Yeah,
That he had. And then later I had a chance to interview him at an event too. And just, oh my goodness, so talented, and so sad about how he passed. But like Sue was saying, that carpe diem is so important.
yeah. It is. It is. And I want to take it even into this because it really calls to me too as well. I got to find out from you. How did you and Dennis Bacoco get connected? How did that transpire? And how did you get to be on Instead Talks? in and of itself. How did that go out?
Yes. Hello. Hi, Tina. With well, Sejal Thakar is one of the people that Dennis and I know.
I know, I know her too. Absolutely.
Right. And so becoming part of the Ovations community and then being connected with Dennis, I think through a post I found out about his talks, and then I said I'd love to do one, and or he said I'd love to have you do one. I've forgotten how it happened, but somewhere in there we wound up talking and just finding out about the incredible community that he's created, and was so glad to connect with you there because of that.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Because the way I connected with Dennis was a great group called Humans First, and they were in a collaboration between Biz Catalyst 360 and Humans First, because Humans First was founded by Mike ViConte, and Mike ViConte was just on point on a lot of his missions and his beliefs about believership. That's one of his books that he did and
Mhm.
everything, and that's how I got involved with Dennis. And Dennis, I kid you not, was our very first guest on Conversations for Humanity. He was.
Really?
Yes, he was.
Oh, wow. He's
Absolutely.
so great.
Yeah, he is. And actually, right now, he's taking, I forget what walk he's on, but there's like some large walk over there, I believe.
Oh, El Camino de Santiago.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
taking that very long walk right now.
it's incredible. I interviewed Martin Sheen and Emilio Estevez because they did a movie about it called The Way. And it's a
Yeah,
pilgrimage that, and I have friends who've taken it, and it is a life-changing experience. That's great that Dennis is on. It's called El Camino. And then,
yeah,
and if you can check, and they re-released the movie The Way last year on one of its anniversaries. And so if you can ever check that out, it's
yeah,
very poignant. But that's great that he's on El Camino. How exciting. Can't wait to
yeah,
hear what he has to share when he
yeah,
gets
yeah.
back.
I would love to know. In fact, Melissa Hughes has been getting updates from him actually from the ground. So she's been sharing pictures on the bench and
Okay.
everything. So that's been, so hopefully tomorrow you join them on the bench and find out where Dennis is at and everything like that. Because on his first day, they actually took the first look at it, and there was a little plaque. There's even a plaque there at the beginning of the trail and
Yes.
everything. And they had a big blow up picture of the first iteration, and it was a beautiful landscape. And I'm
Oh,
like, oh my god, I was just blown away.
yes. And it's such an incredible sense of community there because people from all over the world come to walk El Camino for different reasons. And so that, yes, he is famous. Sue is asking, Dennis is famous. Yes. And so they, everyone that I know who has taken that walk comes away with a greater understanding about themselves, about life, appreciation. And I think at this time, just like your commitment that you have, Chris, to really connecting humanity on a level of who are you really? Like the first question you asked me, who are you? Who are you? Who are we? And when we connect, who are we together? Not with a facade, but just taking off all those layers at the
Right?
at the core of who we are and being seen for that. And then trusting that when we are with people who are like minded in their commitment to seeing the best and not creating division, that together we can have extraordinary experiences and connections that defy even human understanding because we're tuned into the humanity at a level that really invites in the divine understanding of who we are and how we are meant to be in this world together.
Yeah, yeah. I want to share you this because this came from a post, and I truly believe you have something to share on this. Let me
Okay.
ask you this: does good leaders make other people look like heroes?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's so true. I remember when I started doing interviews that there were two schools of thought. Some people would say, "Oh, well, make sure that people know all this about you." But I felt like what you want to do is let people shine in their best light, put them in, create that setting for the diamond that they are. And I think
Mhm.
that good leaders do that. And people who are able to say, you know how they say, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Mhm.
that when you are a leader and you're able to recognize people's talents and you can help them shine, then that really elevates everyone. I mean, that's one of the things, that's one of the reasons I'm passionate about coaching, because people a lot of times who feel like, well, I am a leader, but I'm not trying to be all famous. I don't want to be out there in this way. And I remind them that it's about giving. And that's one of the things I learned from acting. It's just like if you're on stage and you're worried and you're self-conscious, if you delve into that character and you think about giving to the audience, then what comes through is something that is undeniable because it's the essence of who you are. And the same is true with good leaders. When they have a team and they look and say, okay, well, this person thinks that their role is to question everything. Perhaps it's like, how do we utilize that? So, what does this tell us? This tells us that this person is curious. Maybe this person is very precise. This person needs to have an understanding of how things work. So, how do we put that person in a role that really utilizes those talents instead of saying, you don't belong because you're questioning me and I'm in authority? And that's the difference between authoritarianism and, working for a team in a democracy where people have a voice. So good leaders see, I have a team around me and this person needs perhaps some shoring up in this way. How do we utilize the talents? Because first of all, a good leader has to be able to see, really see people and understand where their gifts are. And then understand, okay, this is not a strength here. This is not the zone of genius. Now, for development, many times in companies, they'll say, well, we also want to develop this habit or that habit, and that's fine. But let's look at where each person can have that one moment in time and let it
Mhm.
shine. So that's it's so funny when we think about summer. I remember once I was emceeing an event and it was 100,000 people, a 4th of July event. And this band person in the band said, oh, come on, Janice, you're going to dance with us on stage. And I thought, oh, no. But I did it. And it became one of those moments that I look back on when I have to think about a moment when I felt like, yes, a moment in time. It's like I conquered that. I love to dance, but not in front of 100,000 people, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, but conquering that. So that may seem like, well, that's a trivial example in terms of emceeing events. And I love doing that and did the San Jose Jazz Festival for years as well. But translate that into work, translate that into in an office or on a Zoom or wherever people are connecting for their jobs. And in that one moment, when someone's called, like the song says, when I'm more than I thought I could be, when all of my dreams are a heartbeat away and the answers are all up to me. So, what happens for that person? A good leader can say, let's set things up so that people are receptive to what you're doing. And before you even speak about this, I'll introduce this concept. If we're shifting a paradigm and then you are the person who's leading that, let's look at how we do that together so that we can get everybody on board. So I
Mhm.
agree with you that that quote is powerful and it's so true.
Absolutely. So let's get into our Q&A session now.
Okay.
Dina, how are you doing today on this wonderful Wednesday?
Hey, Dina.
Hi, happy to be here. So finding your whole story and what you've been sharing very inspirational.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
Yeah, I really didn't dress up for work or to be seen today, but like no makeup. I'm really not in the form that I usually like to show up on video, but here I am being authentic. So
We're glad you're here. And you look great.
I'm technically on the job right now. So my thing is I'm like wondering, did you ever have a role that you were in where you felt like maybe this is a bridge to something bigger,
Mhm.
but I'm meant to be here, but it doesn't feel that good, but there's got to be a bigger reason to being here?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. 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 Yes, Tina. I've had that. And I've had experiences where a friend of mine used to say, I'm going to come and literally he said, I'm going to drive before you in the car, in his car, before you on your way to work to help you get there, because I know you don't feel like going in today. And it was because I was dealing with some of those experiences. So the question becomes, how do you navigate that? First of all, you tune into what you do know that's true about your gifts and why, what you are bringing of value. And then you look at where can you, and in my 5 keys to being the star in the reality show of your own life, one of my keys is cut bad guests from the roster. So it's connect to your passion and purpose, craft your message, prep for your inner close-up, cut bad guests from the roster, and then get ready for lights, camera, action. So how does that apply to where you are now? Then when you're recognizing that sometimes there may be what we call microaggressions from other people, and it's some of the dynamic. And look at, first of all, where are there people who are allies, who see your talent, who appreciate that? And where are there opportunities for collaboration? And then when it comes to situations where people are haters, if you will, and just seem determined to sabotage what you're doing, take some time and just write it down. I mean, or you can put it in a laptop, but not on one that's a work laptop. But write down some of those things. What are some of the challenges that I face? And then when it comes to cutting bad guests from the roster, we look at, first of all, what are our thoughts? What are there any habits that I can change? Is there anything that someone has said about me that has some legitimacy that I should look at refining in a way? And then take that self-inventory and tell yourself those hard truths and those soft truths. It's like, it doesn't feel good. I just want to go home. I don't want to play with you anymore. Right? And then, but it's like, but then there's adulting. Okay, come on. Well, first of all, this is providing some resources, so that's good. I think this is a stepping stone to something else. Where do I want to go beyond this? Get that vision. You know how Chris was talking earlier about the teacher speaking into him and seeing that. So visualization, I used to be very good at that. One time I was working at a job and then I'd applied for this other job. And I used to drive, but it was a different station. And a friend of mine and I got tickets to be in the audience to see that show. And then I imagined myself being on the floor as an associate producer. I made up a business card with my name on it as associate producer. And through God's grace and everything, I wound up getting that job over 200 people, someone who had 10 years more experience there. So if you know that this is a stepping stone to something, then what is it a stepping stone to? And can you see that? And so put some energy into that, not energy that takes away from what you're doing. And what that means is that, you know how if we're in training for anything, it takes more than if we're just doing the same thing we've done all the time. So it may mean an extra 30 minutes a day that's on your vision for where you want to go. And then another 30 minutes a day additional from what you normally do to how do I do this job to the best of my ability? And what can I do? And what do I tell myself to? And then sometimes it's like, how can I protect myself from certain rejections if there's social things that make it uncomfortable? And, looking at all those different areas. Okay, professionally, what am I called to do? What are my metrics? What do I have to do? Then on the personal, how do I feel about the people I'm working with? Who are the people who are allies? Are there people with whom I can connect, where we affirm humanity and at the same time we're making sure we're professional? If you're in a situation where a lot of those things are not so clear, be sure to set your boundaries regarding what you share also. Because a lot of times in times of frustration, people will say things and they may want you to chime in with them. But is that really going to advance you toward where you want to go? And might that become something later where someone comes back and says, well, Dina said da 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 da. And you're like, yeah, that wasn't, that was you, right? You don't want to get into that kind of thing. So it's in every way that you can elevate and rise higher and create a vision and speak that even in meetings. I did that at one time too. I said, let's turn to each other. I'd like to do an icebreaker exercise. Turn to the person. And this was something I learned at Women Rocking Business, another mentor of mine, Sage Levine, Chris, since you were asking about that. But she said, so we had this exercise that we did in pairs of 2, but it was one person saying to the other, the leader that I see in you is, and giving 5 or 6 characteristics. And so I brought that into a staff meeting at a place where it was a hostile work environment. But I recommended that. And that day, it was a good day. You know? So there are a number of things that you can start to implement. But first of all, whatever position you have at a company, think of it as you are the president and CEO of your own life. And so, as president and CEO of your own life, and then if these people are playing a role in your life, that's why it's the star in the reality show of your own life. It's like, what role are they playing? And then how do you interact? And so, if you remain from that confident point, if you think about, and when we talk about CEOs, we want to talk about good CEOs, and people who embody the best values, not people who wield power just because they can and they use it to bully people. But so you look at that and say, how do I stand in this? And what can I do? So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, there's so much there, and I definitely want to come back and listen to the replay and take some notes, because a lot of what you're mentioning, it's funny because when I was actually in college, so I went to college for fine art, and one of my dream things was I used to be like, I'm gonna have my own reality show.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna have my own reality show, and like even back then, I wanted to study. I was studying anthropology, and I was like, well, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna work with all these different people around the world, and there's gonna be a show, and we're gonna like show how these women in different parts of the world are making art and making a living, and just spotlighting other people like doing their art. And I'm talking about going to Africa, going to different parts where highlighting women making, being entrepreneurs. And I'll be honest with you, I forgot about this. I forgot about that vision. And I got all like I still do the art, and I work a full-time job, and that has nothing to do with art whatsoever, but it helps me pay for my art supplies.
Right.
And so interesting that you're talking about, being the star of your own reality show. I mean, it totally speaks to me. And so thank you so much. I'm glad that I was able to be on here. And
me too. Well, I'm so glad. And as you were talking about that, one of the things that's incredible now through technology is even if geographically you can't get to those places, you might be able to connect with people and start the show that way. And one of the things that is so important, and Chris, you were asking about this when we talk about one moment in time, that one of the things that I'm committed to, because I know how it is to have years go by and you kind of are almost like treading water. Then you wake up. It's like, oh, I'm awake. I'm connected. And then all of these catastrophes in life happen, and real talk. It can be illness. It can be relationship things, and just all sorts of things. And you go to sleep again. Then it's like, I wake up and I'm awake again, right? And so now you're connecting with that. So just being here to with that, and having the blessing of having a full-time job, which can provide means for certain things, and then saying, okay, well, how would I do my dream? Well, how would I connect with people through different women's business hubs in Africa, in England, in France, and find out through the chambers of commerce there, even something like that, how you might then start with them logging on. And so that becomes the show there until you can get to those places through technology. And what we learned as one of the silver linings in the horrific cloud of the pandemic is that we can connect and we can have meaningful exchanges and a sense of community, even if we're not in the same room.
Oh, yes. I mean, I remember getting involved with a mastermind group, and it's funny how we're all connected too, because I got in a mastermind group back in went right before the whole whatever you want to call that started, and I have different names for it, but anyway,
Okay, right.
that situation.
Yeah.
But I wound up being part of a mastermind group that a friend of mine from high school had connected me to that I had lost touch with, and we reconnected, like joined the mastermind group. From there, it was like Clubhouse, and now all these people, I'm seeing them connecting with each other in LinkedIn, and I'm like watching them all in a live. I'm like, I know you, and I met you in this part of my life, this part of my life, this part of my life. How can we all come together? And it was like, and then I met Chris, and then here we are. Chris
Yes.
and I know the same people, and here I am. I'm like, I work in insurance, by day, and I work, and I'm an artist at night. So, it's all coming together. But I definitely feel very blessed that I could be in a situation where I can be working and still be on the phone call at the same time.
Yes. Oh, that's great. And congratulations on nurturing your art and providing insurance, because we all need it. So thank you for what you're doing in our world.
Thank you. And thank you. I think it's like using different parts of our brain, like I love
Yes.
to connect with people, and I love to connect with people and find out like what do we have in common. So I'm going to stop talking because I know there are other people. Yeah, friends all over the world. I love that. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well,
And I just truly believe in community, and that's why it was a big thing for me to start Conversation for Humanity, because I truly believe it can connect us in so many different and powerful ways. Uh, and yes, Sue, you all have to pay bills, but again, I will go back to what I truly believe is that the next currency of humanity is going to be rooted in value and not money, and I truly believe in that. But I'm going to have to end up kind of ending it here, Janice, because I just got a text message from my wife, and she's been sick for days, mind you. And she said, Chris, I need you to go to the store because I need a little cough syrup. I need a little of this. I need a little of that. It's because she's been sick. And I was like, oh, man, that's not good sound, because she's been sleeping so long. Today was kind of her better day, but I'm going to have to go run to the store and pick up some stuff up because she's just been so bad, and I don't know what she's got. But it's been so hard on her, so I'm gonna have to do some running around for her. So I'm gonna do that and everything like that. But first and foremost, Janice, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today and being involved in today's call and everything. I truly believe in that, and I greatly appreciate that, Dina. Like I said, she's been really sick ever since Sunday, and it's one of those kind of things that's just really irritating, I think, for her. So I'm gonna be doing.
Yes, definitely praying for her. And too, I know you said you have to go to the store. I don't have any stock in it, but Instacart can really be helpful sometimes too, when you have a lot going on to just
exactly. So
praying
again,
for her to be well. Yes.
I hope she comes through it and that kind of thing. Because see, the one thing that I found out with her is when she gets sick, she gets really sick, and you know it. But when she passes it on to me, I even get it 10 times worse than her.
Oh my goodness!
I don't. Yeah, and I don't know why, but sometimes it happens that way. But Janice, we are just so humbled and honored that you're here with us today, and we would love to hear more from you and everything like that. So, Dina, me and you definitely need to talk to as well. We'll make that happen too. And again, thank you so much, Sue, for being on today's call, and of course, Sahar and who was it that was also on today? It was, what's her name? I just saw it earlier. Samira. Thank you so much, Samira, for being on today. Because she did say at the beginning of the call, hello, everyone, and everything. So we greatly appreciate you. But like I said, Janice, keep doing what you're doing. Love what you're doing. Like I said, I can't wait to have more awesome opportunities with you and collaborations with you. So, Janice, thank you so much.
Chris, thank you so much. Thank you for all that you're doing. It was entirely my pleasure and a joy to connect with you in the community. And I will be praying for your wife and for you and for perfect, vibrant health. Be lifting that up.
All righty.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So everyone, you guys have a
okay.
Thank you, Dina. So you guys have a great day. Make it your day on Wonderful Wednesday. And we'll see you on the next Conversation for Humanity next Wednesday. Have a great day, everyone.
Yes. Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice.
Thank you, Chris.